Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@usaprepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set? Cocked and locked? Blissed? Hey, Bliss. Dr. Shealy, are you blissed?
You ever see me when I'm not?
I can't say as I have, Dr. Shealy. I can't say as I have. So, class, your dial is set correctly to USA Prepares, and we're delighted you're with us in class today. Patrick is engineering the broadcast at GCN in Minnesota. I'm Vincent Finelli. And Dr. Shealy, I want to share a quick note with you. Well,
I'm listening.
Yeah. I was talking with Patrick on Friday. He's our engineer. And we were talking about the break room and what it's like at the GCN break room, when the guys get together and they talk about, things that are happening and the idiosyncrasies of the host that they're engineering for and those kinds of things. And he said it's a real blast and it's a lot of fun and comments come out. And so I asked him if they find that the engineers disagree with some of the things that the hosts are saying. And he said, oh, yeah. And I'm paraphrasing. And then he told me he didn't necessarily agree with things that I say. And, and I said, what? And so I was shocked. I thought he agreed with everything I said. And
did you ask him if he's a snowflake?
Well, actually, he is a millennial.
Okay, then he is. If not a full snowflake, at least halfway, perhaps.
Yeah. And so he's going to be on with us on Friday, and we're going to talk about the things that we disagree on. And I've never done that before, and I've invited our broadcast class to call in. And let me give you that number, class, if you want to weigh in on Friday. And it's the same number as today if you'd like to call in and talk to Dr. Shealy. 866-582-9933. 866-582-9933. So that's hour number 2 on Friday with our engineer, Patrick. I'm really looking forward to this. I haven't been involved in debate, and there are 3 things that I avoided during my formal education. One was computers, and it ended up designing computer systems for a Fortune 100 company. Another one was public speaking, and here I am on the radio. And the third one was debate. So I avoided all those things. And so Friday is the last thing that I avoided, and that'll be a friendly, fun debate about the things that Patrick and I disagree on. And I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a blast. So there you have it. So Dr. Shealy, scalar energy. You have any updates on scalar energy for us?
Well, no, actually, the next major event will be the outcome of the year-long study on telomeres. But, I could never miss the opportunity to summarize. At this point we know that it lowers your adrenal medullin. Adrenal medullin is the number one biochemical reaction to stress, and you want it as low as possible. So we know it does that. We know it lowers your free radicals. Well, free radicals are the things that rust us, essentially kill us eventually, and lowering them is superb. Third, we know it releases or reduces all of the inflammatory markers in your blood. Well, inflammation is the number one pathology, if you will, for virtually everything. So, as far as I can tell, I know of no other approach that overall reduces everything we know about the reaction to stress, that reduces it better than anything ever discovered to this point in time. That being true, it ought to allow your telomere to regrow, because the reason the telomere shrink is stress. But it's going to take a year to get that report.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm going to stop into your office this week, and I understand the best days would be Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday, and today being Wednesday, right?
Yeah, it has to be
Is that right?
not later than Wednesday.
Okay, very good. Very good. I'll make sure that happens. Okay. Anything else that you've got that you want to share with us, Dr. Shealy, that we don't know about at
Well,
this
I think
point?
we talked about gamma, didn't we? Or did we?
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that.
Well, gamma is what I would say the frequency that your brain goes into when you're on what I would call a natural high. We're not talking about the kind of thing you get from odd drugs. We're talking about the natural experience of creativity, of insight, of sudden discovery, of blissful feeling of, hey, this is the greatest I've ever felt in my life. That's the gamma experience. And it is missing in people who are depressed. It is missing in people with a low IQ. It's missing in people with brain damage, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And we now have demonstrated, even in one of my patients that we did on Monday, and she's one of the most, damaged people I know from good, accidents and other things. And yet she produced the best gamma I've seen, even better than mine, I think, when we put the PEMF on her head.
And how long did you put this pulsed electromagnetic field device on her head? How long was she wearing
Just 15 minutes. But obviously, for therapy, I would recommend an hour. But it can change it that quickly.
Well, I've had that on my chest, and I got to tell you, Dr. Shealy, I have felt every day now. I feel better and better and better, and I tell Mrs. Finelli, I can't believe it. I feel great.
Let me believe it.
Well, you were talking about waking up and having that sense. Well, I've been saying that for days now. I mean, literally, we have not discussed this. That is the exact description. That's the exact phraseology. The words that I'm using with Mrs. Finelli. First saying, this is great. It's the best I've felt. And you mentioned creativity. Let me share this with the class. I've been using this for weeks now, and I'm talking about a Sapphire Enhanced Scalar Energy Adrenomedullin device that Dr. Shealy and Lou Cassidy have worked on. And I have a prototype here at the farm. And I've been trying to, I built this with our son and my wife. I built this large solar array. And I built it out of salvaged material, used materials, shelving, used shelving. And I did the engineering. We cut and welded it, and put it exactly as I thought it should be. And it was pretty close to, the final design. And we got most of it put together. We had the panels up and running and all that. And then I decided, nope, I've got a better idea. And so I had this inspiration. And it was about the time I started using your device. And I said to our son, this is great. We're going to take all these panels off. And he's like, we took the panels off. And we put them on and mounted them in a much, much, much better way. Way better than the traditional way that solar panels are mounted with these fasteners that you can buy pre-manufactured. And I didn't like those. I didn't like the way they mounted. So I came up with a better idea, and we drilled and tapped this frame. And it took days to get this all done. But we got it done. It's up and running. And we had a really forceful wind. Just in time, we got our solar array mounted in version, we'll call it 2.0 of the array. And it sustained the winds. Now, I'm pretty darn sure that the original design would not have sustained those winds that we had over the last couple of days here. So what I'm saying is we haven't discussed this, and I am absolutely in lockstep with the kinds of things that you're talking about, the same experiences I've had. I won't say it's absolute brilliance, the the innovations I've come up with, but they're pretty darn good. And that's my report, Dr. Shealy. I really feel it. And I'm not trying to pat myself on the back. I'm just saying that sleeping with this device, putting it on my chest, a couple times a day for 3 minutes each, has certainly positively impacted my health, my respiration, and my creativity. And there's one other thing. If I were on the fence about some kind of a decision, and I'd say, well, I don't know, I can't decide. Let me postpone it for a couple days and let me work on it. That doesn't happen. Now I'm back to my instantaneous decisions. Is that something else that you have noticed with this device?
Yes. Basically, I think it just allows, obviously it takes longer for some people than others, but it allows the ravages, if you will, of stress to be reversed.
Mm-hmm.
It's that simple.
Yeah. And I had this pain in my gut from an incision from surgery by my intestines, and that is almost gone. I mean, most of the time it's gone, and once in a while I just have a little bit of irritation. So that's kind of neat. One of the things I wanted to ask you about was Serrapeptase. Have you had any experience with that?
I have not. I'm going to, though. I have ordered some.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to see what it does to me.
Okay. Well, I've heard about this many, many, many years ago when my mom used to listen to Dr. Carlton Fredericks, a health advocate and a professor at, I believe, Fairleigh Dickinson University. And he would broadcast on a 50,000-watt AM station in the 1960s, and we could pick that up at our house when I was growing up. And he used to talk about Serrapeptase. And so one of our instructors suggested I consider it, Bruce Kay. And so I did, and I've been consuming Serrapeptase for months now. I got to tell you that one of the things that allegedly it does is it reduces scar tissue. Well, I can't find the scar, in terms of feeling it, that I had from the surgery. I don't feel the scar. And also, allegedly, or supposedly, or theoretically, it consumes scar tissue, eats it. And I think it's probably right. And that's what I wanted to share. Dr. Shealy and I will be, plus Dr. Norman Shealy's with us. And if you'd like to go to his website, it's normshealy.com, NORMSHEALY.com. And Dr. Shealy is a medical doctor, surgeon of the year, and author of many books, radio broadcaster for decades. And we're talking about health and medicine today. One of the things that, Dr. Shealy, that I've read about the benefits of Serrapeptase, it says it was discovered in the early 1970s as a proteolytic enzyme, and it was isolated from a species of bacteria located in the intestines of silkworms. And it's used in Europe and Asia and in clinical settings, and it can break down non-living tissue in the body. And according to what I've read, that there are some benefits with Serrapeptase for atherosclerosis. And then it also soothes redness, helps with traumatic injuries, reduces pain and swelling, helps with cystic breast disease, helps with infections in the ear, nose, and throat. It helps with carpal tunnel syndrome. I mean, heck, this sounds like something that is a wonder enzyme.
Well, it actually, as far as I could tell, looking at the literature, it is infinitely better than any of the so-called NSAIDs, the non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, even aspirin. I mean, that's what the literature says. It's far better than Aleve, ibuprofen, any drug, prescription drug, and it's less expensive. So,
very, very inexpensive. Well, depending where you buy it, yes. You know, a bottle of, I don't know, well over 100 gel.
Bent?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh.
Can you hear me okay?
Well,
Okay.
over
Yes,
100
I'm here.
after that sells for how much?
Oh, okay. Oh, you know what? I'm looking at the screen that gives me the statistics, and it just showed that I dropped out for about a second and a half. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm back. So that's serrapeptase. In class, let me spell that for you. Serrapeptase. Serrapeptase. And I've been taking it for months, and I think, I mean, unless I'm confused, there are positive benefits for me, and that includes some reduction in inflammation, and the scar tissue is disappearing. Unless it disappears normally, Dr. Shealy, does scar tissue just disappear? You know, these bumps and lumps and
I don't know of anything else that makes scar tissue disappear, so that's an interesting benefit.
Yeah. So that's my thoughts, and you know, it's unscientific, but I can see the difference visually. Dr. Shealy, you know, there has been a lot of discussion about root canals, and so if you have a damaged tooth, and you know, a dentist may say, you know what, I think we can save the tooth, but we're going to have to do a root canal. So we have to drill down there and pull out the root or the roots, and well, you'll end up with a dead tooth, but it'll still be there. What are your thoughts about disease emanating from that dead tissue that's left in your body? Is that a rumor, or is that true?
Well, I think probably. This is my opinion. First of all, I have 3 of them. The oldest of which is about 34 years old. And I've never had any problem whatsoever from my 3 root canals. To me, it's far better to have your own dead, if you will, tooth than a foreign artificial tooth replacing it. Second, my suspicion is that it could be the completeness with which the oral surgeon does the original, you know, excavation. In other words, if the surgeon leaves behind a little tiny bit of infected material when they clean it out, so to speak, they didn't flush it adequately, then obviously that could lead to a recurrent infectious abscess, etc. I know they sometimes blame it on what's put in there, but I tend to believe I would rather have a root canal than have the tooth removed.
Yeah, very good point, and very well said. Dr. Shealy and I'll be right back. Well, and we'll talk about DARPA and this device they have to make you learn faster. Dr. Shealy, several years ago, you and I and Dan Swindell, another one of our instructors, were on the air together doing a broadcast, and also we were doing a live seminar from the Doubletree Hotel in Springfield, Missouri. So it was in front of a live audience. We were on the air live, and this was in a theater, if you will, a theater with a sloped floor and, you know, those very comfortable seats. It's a really nice room. And so we were in the front of that room and on stage, if you want to call it that, and we were doing this live seminar. Well, you had on a device around your head, kind of like a headband, that had electrical stimulation. And you were telling us a little bit about that. And let me continue with this, and you'll see where I'm going. So there's an article on the Daily Mail, and it says, and it shows this kind of a headband, a little different from yours, but not all that much different. And this is something that you've used for years. This is not something that you just, you know, put on for the first time a couple of years ago. Well, here's the headline. The headband that makes you smarter. U.S. military reveals a bizarre device that increases learning by 40%, and it could be commonly used by 2022. The non-invasive device applies a current to the brain's prefrontal cortex. this causes changes in connectivity between different brain areas. During the trials, it was shown that to increase learning by 40%. Researchers now seeking FDA approval and suggest the device will be widespread in 5 to 10 years. Now it goes on to say, the idea of the headband where you can wear to make you smarter may sound like a device from the latest science fiction blockbuster, but experts have revealed that in reality, and claim it can increase learning by 40%. Dr. Shealy, and who's involved with this? Oh, the device, which is described as non-invasive transcranial direct current stimulation. They came up, leave it to the government to come up with an acronym, TDCS, transcranial direct current stimulation, was designed by researchers from HRL Laboratories and McGill University in Montreal with funding from DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Project Agency. So they say that this device can improve learning. Does that not sound similar to the device that you've been using for years? Did I lose Dr. Shealy? Am I even on the air? Oh, jeez.
Brought it to me and said it was good for pain control. Well, it isn't that good for pain control, but I'm the one who discovered that if you put it on the head, it is fabulous for treating depression and anxiety and helping you sleep better. And obviously those would help learning as well. And I have used it, especially when I travel across several time zones. But I've used it in over 30,000 patients successfully in all of these years. I don't know this new device. I'd like to know exactly what it puts out because, there are several others that don't work as well as the all-list device. And my impression over the last months in working with what I call now the cranial PEMF is that it's better even than the list device for mood as well as alertness and creativity.
Mm-hmm. Now, it says that this device took an average of 12 trials to get to if I'm reading this right, let's see. Initially, it took about 15 seconds to find the location, the best fit to make this device work the best. Now, so is this something that you have found takes a little bit of time to get it to where you fine-tune where you wear it in the list device?
No, the list, it doesn't matter. As long as you've got one somewhere on either temple or the center of the forehead. Let's say anywhere from one ear to the other on the front, and on the back, the electrode could be down on your below the skull on your neck or down as far as your toes concerned. Then the whole body gets it. And so it doesn't matter exactly where you put it as long as one of them is on the front part of the head.
Mm-hmm. And class, to kind of describe what this looks like, if you've seen some runners, in like in a marathon, they'll wear a little headband, might be an inch to an inch and a half tall around their head. That's what it looks like, except it has some connections for power and wires and so forth. That's kind of what it looks like. So it's not invasive at all.
Does it have a name?
Yeah, they call it the transcranial direct current stimulation, TDCS. TDCS. And it says that it applies a current to the area of the brain called the prefrontal cortex, and this causes changes in the functional connectivity between different brain areas, increasing learning. And it says, while previous studies suggested that this occurs through increased firing of neurons, the researchers found that this was not the case. Instead, modulated connectivity between the brain areas accounted for the increased learning speed. So they're saying that they've modulated the electrical stimulation.
Yeah,
rather than have
the most recent article that I found immediately was published in 2008. And they say recently, DC polarization was, quote, reintroduced as a non-invasive technique to alter cortical activity. But obviously it wasn't recently. As far as the list is concerned, it was introduced in 1975 and 6. But I'll look further into it to see how if I can find out how related it is. Interesting.
Well, I can't. Yeah, I can't imagine that the McGill University and this company that does the research would have anywhere near the number of years of experience that you have had with the LISC device.
Well, I don't know anybody in the world who's had more experience than I did, because I'm the one who discovered it worked better on the head than on the body.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
So it'd be interesting. You know, I hope Lou Cassidy is listening, because it sounds like the next project.
Well, we've been talking about making our own one of those, but now that I've got what I call the cranial PEMF, I'm not sure we need it. We're obviously going to have to do a lot more. Actually, you know what we're going to do first? You know, Lou and I and you have all discussed this in various ways, but the problem with the world and this country and the snowflakes and a lot of other things. I mean, and Jeff Flake, by the way, has got to be the head of the Snowflake organization with a name like that in his behavior. The problem with people in this country today is a lack of common sense, which must include being organized and responsible, personal responsibility. I mean, that's your number one theme. Has been since before I knew you, is personal responsibility. Well, that's called conscientiousness. So we're going to do a study. I think Dr. Abernathy is going to do a study to see whether giving this to some snowflake conscious people will actually help them become conscientious, which means organized, responsible, adult, et cetera, et cetera.
Dr. Shealy, one of the things I was thinking about, I was talking with one of our instructors yesterday on the telephone, not on the air, and I was thinking about this young generation and how they don't do the things that we used to do. And one of the things that I said was, you know, on Saturdays, you could go to any neighborhood, anywhere in the country, and what you would see is you would see the hoods raised on vehicles, and you'd see, you know, guys leaning over and working on the engines, or you would see the vehicles jacked up a little bit on jack stands or wood blocks, and then you'd see their legs, you know, sticking out from underneath them. And so if they're working on the exhaust system or the drive shaft or the rear end or the transmission or something like that, you'd see their legs. If they're working on the tuning the engine up and checking the fluids and so forth, spark plugs, distributor cap, rotor, air cleaner, cleaning the carburetor, changing the oil, you'd see, you know, half their body sticking out from under the hood. Well, we don't see that anymore. And why is that? And I think that's part of the reason, not all of it, just part of the reason why we have the snowflakes who don't seem to understand some things, and that's because they haven't had that experience. Now, why is that? Well, I've got to blame corporations for it, and I've got to blame schools for it, and I've got to blame parents for it. Because the parents could have taken their children and said, hey, listen, we're going to change the oil today. So, it's Saturday, more like 10:30 when it warms up just a little bit and the sun's out. We're going to get under the hood, and I'm going to show you how to change the oil. We're going to rotate the tires. I'm going to show you how to do that. We're going to change the air cleaner. I'm going to show you how to do that. That doesn't happen very often. Parents don't do that. Schools have discontinued those classes in mechanics and wood shop and, electrical shop and those kinds of things. We've discontinued the trades in favor of learning how to type on a keyboard with Microsoft Office. And that's what we do instead. So I blame the schools. I blame the parents. And let's blame the corporations, because they've made it very difficult to work on equipment because now it's computer controlled. John Deere will tell you that, and I'm paraphrasing, that they are not an iron company anymore. They don't make machinery. They are an information company. That's what John Deere will tell you. Yeah. And so, I've bought my last piece of current production John Deere equipment. And the last piece I bought was maybe, 15 years ago. And that's as new as I'm going to go with those guys because they want to prevent me from working on their equipment. So those are my thoughts, Dr. Shealy. I'd love to hear your comments when we come back. Class, Dr. Norman Shealy's with us, medical doctor, and we're talking about conscientiousness, and we're talking about the snowflake generation. And I mentioned that I think that much of the blame has to do with schools. The fact that we aren't teaching young people the necessary skills that they need for survival. One of the things that I find that young people don't know how to do very well, and maybe it's just me, but I believe that they don't know how to estimate as well as those of us who are older. And the reason is we were less dependent on machines for adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. We had to learn how to do those things in our head, mathematics in our head. And in addition to that, schools have removed from the curriculum teaching mechanical skills. We've even removed the rifle shooting programs, where marksmanship programs. We removed them from schools, and then I believe that parents haven't taught their children the things that they needed to. Like how to change the oil for the lawnmower and mowing the lawn and cleaning up and home economics kinds of things. And then corporations have removed from us the ability to maintain equipment that we might have around the house. We don't fix radios anymore. We don't change the tubes in radios anymore or televisions. We just throw them away. And so corporations are complicit in this as well. Those are my thoughts, Dr. Shealy. What are your thoughts?
Oh, you're absolutely right, Ben. Now, I would like to suggest why this all began. Television. I think television is the beginning of the loss of of the frontal lobes. It is the most dehumanizing waste of time and life energy ever created. It was the beginning of the onslaught of this later crap. And let's face it, there's a recent study that shows in China, of all places, the length of the telomeres of the people who watch television the most have telomeres that are 4% shorter than people who don't watch television. I mean, it's not just shortening your brain bucket, it's shortening your life. And it's crap. I mean, I don't think there's an hour a day that is worthwhile on every television station in the world. Compared
I believe you're right. I believe you're right. When I was preparing for one of our expos, our early expos, I was at the local television station in Springfield, Missouri, and we're going to buy some advertising for the show and for the expo. And they had all these TVs in the lobby, and I could see them. And I was looking at Ellen DeGenerate, and I was like, "Why? This is silly. This is nonsense. This is, who would watch this tripe?" Well, there it was, and television commercials, $950 for 30 seconds or more, and to reach an audience that's going to watch that kind of stuff, it was very difficult for me to pick programming that I would want the commercials inserted in for the Get Prepared Expo. And, what we did was we chose the news. So our commercials ran during the news, and we thought that, anybody who watches Ellen DeGenerate, I think her name is DeGeneres, but to me, I can't remember that.
Well, now, let's march forward from roughly the 1950s when television began to be rampant to today. Yes. And the thing that has replaced it, and in my opinion is maybe 10 times worse than television, is the dumb phone.
Yeah.
I believe these so-called smartphones are the worst thing that's ever been created for intelligence and brain function and health.
And I've spent time with people, and, I'll be teaching a class, informal class, just a couple people, and I'll be showing them how to do something. And those darn phones will be in their pockets, ringing, buzzing, and I'm like, really? Really, you can't spend like 10 minutes in a row without that darn thing going off? How important is that? You know, geez, you're absolutely right, Dr. Shealy. And then we've got these perverts, in my word, that are formulating what we watch on television if we choose to watch it, like Harvey Weinstein, David Duchovny, a sex addict, Pee Wee Herman, another pervert. I mean, it's replete. Hollywood is replete. Everyone all set? Cocked, locked, blissed? Hour number 2 of USA Prepares with Dr. Norm Shealy. We were talking during hour number 1 about television and how it really started to take off in the 1950s. And then I mentioned that, you know, there are some people who have problems, like David Duchovny, alleged sex addict, and Harvey Weinstein. I mean, people are coming out of the woodwork, women are coming out of the woodwork, accusing him of all kinds of sexual advances. And then you've got Pee Wee Herman. I mean, so all kinds of people on television, you know, that we see on the screen, and we, you know, if you don't know the backstory, you think they're really nice people. And then you learn that, gosh, they've got some real problems. And these are the people who are on the screen and we look up to them. Well, used to look up to them, or might have looked up to them, or could have looked up to them. And then we realize that, why would anybody look up to them? Dr. Shealy, I believe you're absolutely right. And these people are trying to teach us through their own perversions on the screen that things that are abnormal, not right, are normal and right. That's one of the problems I see.
Well, I've just found over half a dozen articles on some of the damages of dumb phones.
Okay.
And there is no way that I can call them a smartphone. They are, in my opinion, as I said earlier, 10 times worse than television. Both of them, in my opinion, are not advances in technology.
Okay, let's talk about them.
Well, there are two big things. The smartphones, there's evidence damage your skin, damage your eyes, damage your brain. But other than that, Mrs. Lincoln, I mean, come on. If they damage your skin, your eyes, and your brain,
spine?
Do you need anything else?
What about the spine? The curvature of the spine from these young people who are hunched over, looking at their phones.
Interfere with sleep. Interfere relationships. They're negative social instruments.
Yeah, and the current generation, I believe, has suffered the most from this.
Oh yeah, well, that's where the snowflakes came from.
And it's really, really sad. And Dr. Shealy, those are the people. Well, how about this? How about the thought of one of them becoming president?
Right. Well, at the present time, hopefully there's enough in the population who recognize how bad it is to prevent that. But who knows?
I was reading an article, and I can't remember all the details, but it was about white privilege and how mathematics is it's biased. It's kind of racist, mathematics, because we judge people. If we see someone who's really good in math, we think they're pretty smart. We see someone who can't add, subtract, multiply, or divide, we think, well, they're the opposite of really being bright. And so it's kind of a racist thing, because it seems that some white people seem to do better, according to this article, in math. Really? How about the Asians? They're pretty good in math. How about some of the other groups out that way? Really bright in math. Maybe brighter than we are. Well, as whites, it's really getting twisted the way we're thinking. And where is this information coming from? I believe they hire people to allegedly write these science and medical articles, and they're twisted and they're bent, and people will read the news and say, well, here's a doctor that says, vitamin C is bad. Don't take vitamin C because it's really bad for you. Things like that. Idiotic things.
He's got to be a snowfall. I mean, Vince, there's one word that describes a lot of people today, It's called ignorance. It's not stupidity.
Yes.
Stupidity is the inability, to know. But ignorance is ignoring truth or fact. And look at this one. The mere presence of your smartphone reduces brain power. Macomb's assistant professor, Adrian Ward, doing experiments on 800 smartphone users, found that people who use smartphones, even have them nearby, are not functioning brain-wise as well. Brain's ability to hold and process data is decreased just by having the blank thing near you, let alone watching it.
All right. So let's extrapolate this discussion to what happens every morning and every afternoon. So these yellow metal tubes with windows called school buses take children from where they get picked up at the bus stop, maybe in front of their house, and they travel along the path to school. And it might be 30, 45 minutes in this yellow metal tube with windows. Now, how many of those children have cell phones? Probably most of them, unless they're very, very young children. Okay? So if it's a bus with high schoolers, absolutely no question about it. Pretty much every one of them will have a cell phone. So let's say we have 45 people on the bus. 45 cell phones, all blasting microwave energy inside that metal microwave oven that's a yellow tube. Think about that, class. The top of the bus is metal. Most of the sides, metal. The bottom, metal. The front, except for the windows, metal. The back, except for the windows, metal. So what we have is a windowed microwave box with 45 microwave transmitters, all blasting away in that box. Okay, so let's move on to the subway. Same thing. Same thing. Let's move on to the city bus system. Same thing. Let's talk about an airplane before it takes off. Same thing.
There is one article, by the way, I just found one, can smartphones damage your spine? The answer is yes.
Yes. Yep, and make us nearsighted because we keep looking
and worse.
close. Yeah.
It made some people blind.
Yeah. I was thinking about another piece of little technology that they make these levels. If you want to, the levels that I have at our house that we use have a vial with a liquid and a bubble in them, and you can tell when something is horizontal or vertical based on looking at this vial with a bubble in it. Well, today there are a lot of levels that use lasers, make it real easy. Well, what about the guy who's at the other end of the level who's not aware, and all of a sudden you hit the button and he gets that laser blast in his eye, and he does surgery on his eye from the level? I mean, there are a lot of technologies that I think are just not worth having. I think they're dangerous, and that's one of them. And the smartphones, well, you know how I feel about the smartphones, and I don't have one. I don't even have a dumb phone, and yet I can. Dr. Shealy, you're not going to believe this. Well, I can travel all the way to Springfield from the farm and back without calling anybody. Can you imagine?
Well, I do it to Springfield. It's about a third or less the time that you take, but I do it at least 5 days a week without a cell phone on.
Yeah. And could I be a little bit more productive? Maybe could I get a couple more things done if I were talking and operating a vehicle? Maybe. But is it dangerous? Absolutely.
Vince, the evidence is that just talking on the phone, even if you don't have it in your hand, makes your brain about equal to someone who's lightly drunk.
Yeah.
So, yes, no. There's nothing good about using these phones except emergency. That's it. They should be required only for emergency.
I can just imagine being on one of those chartered buses, okay, going on a couple 100-mile trip, and all of a sudden the bus weaves, and then the guy in front, So I look at the guy in front of me. This is just hypothetical. I look at the guy in front of me. He goes, "It's okay. He's just on the phone." The driver's just on the phone. Don't worry about it. He just, that little bit of weaving, he was just correcting because he was on the phone. I don't want the bus driver, when I'm a passenger, to be on the phone. I don't want the pilot to be on the phone. I don't want my surgeon to be on the phone. I don't want my doctor during my doctor's appointment, that 7 minutes of doctor's appointment, to be interrupted by the cell phone. I don't want any of that. I don't want people who come to our house to have lunch or dinner or breakfast with us to put their cell phones on the kitchen table and have those interruptions. Why are they at our house if they want to be on the phone? They can stay home and be on the phone. I think it's antisocial. I think it's offensive. I think it's, politicians use the word disrespectful. Well, it is.
That's too gentle.
Yeah, it is. It is. So I think that based on my analysis, speaking publicly as I have for a number of years, traveling, around the country, talking to preparedness groups, and even telling them the dangers of the cell phone, and then after the seminar is over, and I teach them about the electromagnetic radiation, how dangerous it really is. Then I ask the question, how many of you are willing to dump your cell phone right now? Nobody.
Well, no,
literally.
I beg your pardon. I don't have one.
Really? Yeah, well, no, what I'm saying is people who have them in the seminar, I will ask.
I'm teasing.
But of those people in the seminar with me, no one was ever willing, not one person, willing to say, you know what, I believe you. I'm going to dump it right now. No one. We'll be right back. Dr. Norm Shealy's with us. Class, if you'd like to go to his website, get the free multi-week newsletter. It's released multiple times per week. NormShealy.com. NormShealy.com. Dr. Shealy, back in the 90s, I was a computer consultant, and I refused to be part of this wireless technology. And we had teachers who were saying, I just came back from a seminar in Richmond, Virginia, and they've got this new technology. It's really neat. It's wireless, and boy, you can connect your computers without wires. And you're making us go through all these wiring things with cables everywhere and jacks and in the walls, and we could do it without that. And I fought them every step of the way. And I said, mark my words. Mark my words. In 15 years or so, you are going to learn about cancers, and you're going to be learning about medical problems as a result of the microwave communications that you're advocating, and I will not be part of it. Just mark my words. And of course, here we are, and we've had those revelations even in the mainstream media. But here's how I explained it, and tell me if this makes sense medically. So what I said was, all right, we've got this classroom, and you want to put in these wireless notebook computers, okay? So you want to put 30 computers in a classroom. We'll have an access point in the ceiling. So all of the computers on the students' desks will be communicating with this access point. So the access point is 1 unit of microwave transmission. Now think of the microwave oven. Let's say we could set the power level between 1 and 100. Okay, so we set it to 1, and it cooks a lot slower than if you set it to full power at 100. So now in this classroom we have that one access point. We'll call that power level 1. And then we add our first notebook computer. That's 2. Then we add our second notebook computer. That's 3. So we had 30 notebook computers plus the access point. That's 30 plus 1, or 31. We had the wireless printer. That's 32. So now we have 32 devices all communicating. And add the teacher's computer. That's 33. So they have 33 devices all communicating in the same room that has a steel ceiling. There's the ceiling above the tile, suspended ceiling is usually steel decking. So that's reflective. Now we have these students who are sitting in a classroom, and let's say it's an elementary classroom, all day long. in this microwave oven with 33 devices all blasting away. And I was against that. Dr. Shealy, does that make sense to you that this is additive and it's cumulative?
Of course it is. 2 milligrams of grams of arsenic is worse than 1 gram. That's simple.
Okay. All right, let's take it to the next point. So now we have this epidemic of ADHD, and we've had it for 10 or 15 years now. ADHD. We say these children are hyperactive. They've got ants in their pants. They just can't sit still. Now, don't you think that, or do you think that some of this hyperactivity is a result of this bombardment of microwave radiation and other electronic wavelengths and frequencies within the classrooms?
Right.
So instead of fixing the problem, instead of getting rid of the electronic noise and the electronic frequencies and the electronic signals, what we do is we put the children on medication to minimize the appearance of these symptoms, which is nuts. Just get rid of the microwave activity. And then now we've got those wireless classrooms with the 33 microwave devices in them. And then we had the cell phones, because the teacher's got a cell phone in his or her pocket, and so do each of the students.
Vince, I have an idea.
Yes.
I'm going to write an article called Technology Dysthymia Disorder.
Yes.
Dumbing down, immune damage, blindness, Alzheimer's, telomere, and life shortening. That's the beginning.
And you can get yours for $40 a month by getting a cell phone plan.
Well, now I will say, I do believe that having the old-fashioned flip phone turned off in your pocket when you're traveling is a good idea. Because
for many people, yes.
If you have a flat tire even, and you don't have something to fix it, if you have any other kind of emergency, it is nice. And that's what phones should be for. Urgent stuff, not idle moment-to-moment stuff.
I agree. And so for those of you who want an old-fashioned flip phone for emergencies, I am all for that. But I'm not for 24/7 on-tap communications. Dr. Norman Shealy's with us. And a quick message. Bill Deagle called me, and he invited me to be on his broadcast tomorrow at 3 o'clock Central Time. So I'm going to be on with Bill Deagle right here at GCN tomorrow at 3 o'clock. We're going to talk about preparedness and survival. So if you'd like to catch up on preparedness and survival from my perspective, that's tomorrow, 3 p.m. Central Time. Dr. Shealy, I remember back in the 1960s and 1970s and even into the 1980s, a lot of new home construction included copper plumbing. And copper was expensive. Today it's really expensive compared to plastic or PEX. But I remember reading an article, and actually articles, about copper deficiencies and how if you didn't have enough copper, your body would not function optimally. And one of the signs of a copper deficiency was premature whitening of the hair. Is that true?
That's true. And also, more importantly, it is one of the precursors or contributors to aneurysms of the arteries, that is, in your brain or in your aorta especially.
Meaning if you don't have enough copper?
Exactly.
Wow. Okay. Dr. Shealy, I'm hearing more and more about people who are suffering from brain tumors and issues relating to the brain than I've ever heard in my entire life. I would say I've heard this year more incidents of brain-related tumors and aneurysms than I've had the rest of my entire life, just this year. And is there something going on? Do you think it's traceable back to the cell phones? Or?
Oh, I think that's a part of it, no question. There's no question it damages the brain. Any way you look at it, it damages the brain.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And I was thinking, I don't want to end up in fights with lots of people, but it'd be really simple to be able to say, if you just did this, if you took one of those retro style, that's what they call them, handheld telephone receivers, that part that you used to hold in your hand back in the 70s, 60s, 70s, and so forth, that style, with a little cord, and plug that into the little 3.5 millimeter jack on your cell phone. If you'd use that and keep that cell phone, 4 feet away from you, and you could hear and talk on your phone using that. Distance is your friend. You're a little farther away from the microwave frequencies and transmissions, and it'd be better for everybody. But I'm afraid I would cause arguments by saying, why don't you do that? Why don't you put the $8 into that handset? Wouldn't that be a lot better for people than walking around with that thing stuck against their face and their brain?
Oh, yes. No question about it.
Mm-hmm. But it's a question of convenience. And the people who use cell phones they're so lulled into this, the lure of convenience that they're not willing to protect themselves. And it's kind of like smoking, Dr. Shealy. When a young person starts smoking, they think, well, it's only going to be 7 years off their life, or maybe 14. No big deal. They're young, healthy, immune from disease. But then when they get lung cancer, that's when they regret it.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, brightness, IQ, the vast majority of people at least used to have an IQ of 90 or above.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I would love to, I haven't seen a study just on IQ, but I predict that when it's done, we will find that people who spend even an hour a day or more on a dumb phone have a lower IQ than those who don't.
I'm willing to bet the same way that you are. I agree with that. Seems very clear to me because, I understand that our skulls have gotten smaller since, over time, and it's because we eat more cheese, and we don't have to have these massive jaws to chew, meat, uncooked meat, for example. We can just go right through white bread and cheese very easily. So we don't need the bone structure and the jaw structure for, consuming food. And I have a feeling that same logic applies to the cell phone. We don't have to think too much. It's all on the cell phone. And if you ask someone for directions, it's difficult for them today, for a young person, to give directions without their cell phone. I mean, they can easily say, okay, so where do you want to start? Oh, you want to start right here? Okay, no problem. The phone knows we're here because of the GPS coordinates. So it knows we're here. And you want to go to where? Okay, let me just type that in. And they type that in. Okay, here's how you get there. Step-by-step directions. You don't have to know very much. You don't have to know how to read a map. You don't even have to look for streets.
I'm glad you brought that one up because just a couple of weeks ago, I had to rent a car and drive a couple of hours to a destination. And guess what I did? I looked it up on a map and got the directions before I got there.
That's what I do.
I would know what to do without having to use a GPS.
That's exactly what I do. I look it up, and I familiarize myself with where I am, the key points. I look for where, if it's going to be a long trip where I might be getting fuel. So I've got all that, and I print out the highlights of that map, and I can keep it next to me if I need it. But yeah, and now we don't have to remember too many things because, heck, that phone remembers it for us. As a matter of fact, how many people even know the phone numbers of the people they call? They just type in, right? They don't know those phone numbers because the phone knows them. Why the heck would they have to remember them? Because the phone knows them. The numbers that I call frequently, I know. I mean, I know your number.
Well, I have to admit, I do carry a lot of phone numbers in my little black book.
Well, I do too.
I've used my little black book. To me, it is faster for me to look it up in my little black book than it would be on a phone.
Absolutely.
I mean, all I have to do is open it to the right alphabet. I mean, that is a lot quicker than typing something into a dumb phone.
You know, Dr. Shealy, I'm sitting here in the broadcast studio here at the farm, and I have a couple spiral notebooks. They're about 80 pages. Let's see. Yeah, well, 70 or 80 pages, depending on inflation and when I bought them. So I write down the notes, the things that I want to remember to talk about during the daily broadcast. That's the way I do it.
I do that all the time.
But I have a network in our house, and I could sit, in the kitchen, and I could type up, those points, and then I could come up to the studio and retrieve that document from the server. I could do all that. But for some reason, I prefer to use a pen, smooth writing pen, and a pad. So
it's quicker.
Absolutely.
And you don't have to look it up again once you've got it in your pad.
That's right. And here's what I have. For today, I have scalar update, French toast, copper pipes, garlic, medications and hair loss, oil of oregano. Those are just on some of the items I have listed on one of these pages. And those are things that I wanted to remember to talk about. Then I took a yellow highlighter and I highlighted oil of oregano, French toast, copper pipes, garlic, and medications and hair loss. So that I make sure we discuss them. So, medications and hair loss. Dr. Shealy, I was looking up, some common medications, and people tell me they're on carvedilol and Coreg and lisinopril. So I looked them up. Lisinopril, that's derived from snake venom. Okay, all right, snake venom. And what's one of the complications? Hair loss. Well, heck, I could say to someone, well, it might cause liver problems. It might cause, all these other maladies. But when you get into hair loss, heck, that's important, right? We don't want to have that. So if patients knew that lisinopril causes hair loss in some of the people who take it, I'll bet you they would try to avoid taking it. They might eat garlic and they might eat more beets, which is a lot less convenient than just popping one of those lisinoprils in the morning and in the afternoon or evening. So hair loss.
Interestingly, Monday I saw a man that I've been working with for 3 months. He was on 2 blood pressure drugs and had many, many, many side effects, including fatigue and, of course, erectile dysfunction.
Uh-huh.
And it took me over 6 weeks to get him to agree to do autogenic training. Finally, I just said, I almost demanded he do it because I kept trying. I showed him here in the office. In 3 minutes, his blood pressure would drop doing that. Now he is off both drugs. Energy is excellent. For the first time in years, he's functioning normally without one of those stupid drugs.
Okay, so here's the question, Dr. Shealy, and I think it's the same reason as the addiction to cell phones. I think they're tied together. So what is it? What is it about autogenic training? What's that? Just a few minutes, once or twice a day? A few minutes of relaxation, training your body? What's so hard about that compared to the side effects of these medications? Okay, so what's so hard about putting that darn cell phone down and not being interrupted 24 hours a day? I've seen young people on a ladder, okay, and I'm not talking 3 feet up. I'm talking, up the next story, and the cell phone rings in their pocket, and they want to take the call. What are they thinking?
The output word, thinking.
Yeah.
You're not.
You're not.
It's turned
French
off.
toast. Class, Dr. Norman Shealy's with us, medical doctor, normshealy.com. And if you'd like to get the same newsletter that I get multiple times per week, just go to normshealy.com and you can sign up for it. It's absolutely free. French toast, Dr. Shealy. I liked French toast as a child. I'd put cinnamon on it. Not cinnamon sugar, just cinnamon. But the problem is gluten. And I've found a solution that I think might make sense, and I wanted to get your opinion on it. Bread made with potatoes. Is that a solution?
it's all potato, but if it's got wheat in it, it's still got gluten. But you can get an excellent gluten-free flour. There are many, many varieties of it. Bob's Red Mill has them. The one I like most is Pamela, P-A-M-E-L-A. I got a 4-pound bag of it recently because I use it occasionally. But anything you make with wheat in it has gluten in it, and therefore it's essentially poison because of Roundup and Monsanto.
Okay, but the gluten-free flour, Pamela, is okay?
Absolutely. And it makes, all right. My favorite, actually, is what I call butter-rich Southern biscuits, y'all.
Okay, that sounds great.
I make those for guests, not for myself. But you can make any kind of bread out of it, whole loaf, all the way.
Okay. As soon as I'm done with the broadcast, I'm going to tell Mrs. Finelli about Pamela, P-A-M-E-L-A.
Right.
Okay. Oil of oregano. Dr. Shealy, what are your thoughts about that for colds and sore throats and just, you don't feel quite right and you want to feel better? Oil of oregano on...
There is evidence of that. Now, my number one recommendation is if you feel what I call a virus knocking at the door in your body, I take 150,000 units of vitamin D3.
Yep. 150,000 units of vitamin D3.
Oregano. If it works, fine, but I know that for me, in the last 11 years now, I've not had a virus take hold.
Okay. And if you really feel a strong one attacking you, do you take another 150 the next day and the next day and then that's
3 days in a row, and then I wouldn't take it for a week or two.
Okay. And the reason for that, not taking more, is
well,
what?
It is, there is a limit to safety even of vitamin D3. But actually, in Australia 20 years ago, they gave children 600,000 units of vitamin D3 at the beginning of the school year. Just once a year. And it cut the incidence of viral diseases by well over 80%.
Okay. How about garlic? What are your thoughts on... Now, I'm not talking about garlic pills or garlic salt or garlic powder. I'm talking about fresh garlic peeled and chewed.
Well, the reason that I don't like that, I love the taste of garlic when it's cooked in something. But if I ate a garlic clove whole, I think my poor gut would explode. I mean,
it's a belly bomber,
my
no
particular
question.
intestines do not tolerate a lot of garlic, especially raw garlic. But if you do tolerate it, it's good. It's an excellent immune enhancer.
Okay. I was reading an article, and it's right on the Drudge Report right now, and it says Australians are spending billions on vitamins and supplements, but science shows most won't improve our health. Some may even be dangerous. And it goes on to say, let's see, we need vitamins in our diet to be healthy. If you're severely deficient in vitamin C, you can get scurvy. If you have too little vitamin D as a child, you can get bowed legs. And not enough vitamin A, that can make you go blind. And so that's what it said. And it said, but the message has quickly shifted. Vitamins are no longer... Boy, I hate it when the pages jump around like this when you don't... because of advertisements. Vitamin B supplements are put under microscope. Researchers find no evidence that they prevent heart disease, strokes, or cancer. It does not appear to improve cognitive function. Really? I think it does.
Well, whoever wrote that is beyond ignorant. That's stupid,
That's what I think.
And crazy.
I think so as well. Absolutely. I think vitamin B does improve cognitive function. At least it does for me.
I've done it many times.
Yeah. Dr. Shealy, hey, thank you so much for being with us. I just love broadcasting with you. And we'll see you next Wednesday.
Have a great one. See you then.
You too. Above all, honesty and integrity. What happens next is up to you.